What began as a dream honeymoon for Christe Chen and Bradley Dawson ended in tragedy. A jarring reminder that not everything shiny and Instagram-worthy has a golden core. The Memphis couple had just exchanged vows in February 2022, stepping into what was supposed to be the blissful beginnings of wedded life. Christe, a dedicated pharmacist in training and former pastry chef, and Bradley, an IT professional at a children's welfare nonprofit, seemed to have it all. A fairy tale love story with a tropical ending. But the ending wasn't romantic, it was criminal. And it happened in one of the most breathtaking places on Earth. Paradise with a plot twist. The couple chose the Turtle Island Resort in Fiji for their honeymoon, an ultra-luxurious, private island retreat, famous for its pristine beaches and its cinematic cameo in the 1980 film, The Blue Lagoon. With gourmet meals, private villas, and personal concierges, the resort promises peace and pampering. Instead, it became the set of a real-life crime drama. On July 9, 2022, resort staff discovered Christe Chen's lifeless body inside her villa, soaked in blood and riddled with blunt force trauma. It was the kind of crime that seemed completely out of place in paradise, like ordering a filet mignon and getting served a murder scene. The Vanishing Groom. If you think the story couldn't get more bizarre, hold that thought. Bradley Dawson, the groom, was nowhere to be found. His new wife lay dead in a luxury bungalow, and he had vanished. Authorities later revealed he fled the island using a kayak. Yes, a kayak armed with only his passport and wallet, abandoning both his phone and GPS watch. Apparently, he was more concerned about dodging police than catching sunburn. The Fijian authorities managed to catch up with Dawson about 36 hours later. He had landed on another island, likely not realizing you can't kayak your way out of a murder investigation. His excuse? He was in shock and needed space. A therapist's couch might have been a better option than a fugitive kayak journey. The grim details unfold. As the investigation deepened, the horrifying details of Christe's death became clearer and even more gruesome. She had suffered multiple traumatic head injuries, and the assault was so brutal that her body couldn't even be embalmed for a traditional funeral. Instead, her family was forced to cremate her remains in Fiji, unable to bring her body back home to the United States. Imagine planning to frame wedding photos and instead having to transport ashes across the Pacific. It was a heartbreak no family should endure. No parent dreams of flying to paradise just to return home with an urn instead of memories. She left for a honeymoon and came back as heartbreak, and a box life isn't supposed to work that way. It's hard to call it an accident when even the funeral home says, "We can't undo this." This wasn't just a murder. It was a complete erasure of dignity in her final moments. The not-so-convincing defense. Bradley Dawson pleaded not guilty and claimed Christe's death was accidental. This defense might have flown if she had slipped on a coconut or stubbed her toe on a lava rock. But this was a violent beating that painted a very different picture. The court wasn't buying it either. Dawson's lawyer said he panicked, fled the scene, and didn't know what to do after his wife's death. That defense might have scored points in a soap opera but didn't carry much legal weight in court, especially when your wife is found with blunt force trauma and you've gone full Tom Hanks in Castaway. Running away in a kayak doesn't scream grief. It screams, "I watched too much Survivor." If this was shock, it came with a passport and a paddle. Leaving behind your GPS watch but grabbing your wallet? That's not trauma, that's strategy. Even the judge probably rolled their eyes when they heard, "It was an accident, Your Honor." The courtroom showdown. After a long wait, 2 years to be exact, Dawson finally stood trial in Fiji. It wasn't your average courtroom showdown. Unlike U.S. proceedings filled with dramatic lawyer speeches and surprise evidence reveals, the Fijian legal system relies heavily on judges rather than jury theatrics. In the end, the judge delivered a crystal-clear verdict. Dawson was guilty of murder beyond a reasonable doubt. The court found no credibility in his story of provocation or accident. In simpler terms, the oops defense just didn't cut it. The judge didn't need a jury just functioning common sense and a decent grasp of reality. Turns out, trying to charm your way out of murder doesn't work in paradise either. Dawson might have hoped for courtroom drama, but he got a swift, no-nonsense judgment instead. When your defense is weaker than instant coffee, expect a strong sentence in return. A pattern of violence? While Dawson had no prior criminal record, Legal experts emphasize that brutal acts like this don't typically happen in a vacuum. Former prosecutor and defense attorney Florina Altschuler weighed in, explaining that domestic abuse often starts subtly: emotional manipulation, verbal aggression, minor physical acts before escalating into serious violence. Did Christe face this kind of treatment before? We may never know, but Altschuler's analysis paints a chilling possibility. This wasn't necessarily a sudden outburst, but potentially the violent crescendo of a long-simmering problem. Domestic violence isn't usually a lightning bolt. It's a slow, toxic storm. Just because someone hasn't been arrested before doesn't mean they haven't practiced cruelty in private. It often starts with joking insults and ends with police tape romantic, right? No one snaps overnight. They just run out of excuses and self-control at the same time. No excuses, just consequences. There's a difference between acting out of emotion and committing a horrific crime. Emotional distress isn't a license to murder someone, especially not someone you claim to love. Altschuler pointed out that while some murders are calculated, others stem from rage and impulsiveness. Dawson's actions appeared to be the latter. A man so consumed by fury, he couldn't or wouldn't stop until his bride was dead. But no amount of rage justifies a savage attack, especially one that ends a life just as it was beginning anew. You don't get to call it an accident when the evidence looks like a horror film set. Losing your temper isn't the same as losing your mind. Only one ends in handcuffs. Crimes of passion still come with prison time and 0 conjugal visits. If you're angry on your honeymoon, maybe therapy, not marriage, was the better first step. Justice in paradise. Now convicted, Dawson faces a mandatory life sentence under Fijian law. However, the local court system allows for a judge to set a minimum term before parole eligibility is considered. As of now, Dawson's fate is sealed in the very place where his honeymoon became a horror story. There's an eerie irony to it all. Sentenced in paradise for destroying what was supposed to be the most joyful chapter of his and Christe's life. He came to Fiji for sunsets and champagne, but left with handcuffs and court dates. Instead of snorkeling with his bride, he's now navigating the prison menu. He traded luxury villas for iron bars. And no, there's no personal concierge in cell block C. In a poetic twist, the only honeymoon he'll get now is bunking with a snoring cellmate. A tragic reminder. Christe Chen's murder is more than a crime story. It's a warning sign for anyone overlooking the early signs of domestic violence. Her death emphasizes the importance of identifying abusive behavior early and acting fast, whether it's leaving a toxic partner or helping a friend who's in danger. As Florina Altschuler urged, domestic violence rarely comes out of nowhere. It often builds like storm clouds on a sunny day. The shove today could be the slap tomorrow, and tragically the fatal blow down the line. Love shouldn't hurt unless you're both sore from salsa dancing. If your partner has more red flags than a theme park parade, it's time to reroute. You're not overreacting by leaving someone who scares you, you're surviving. Don't wait for a true crime headline to prove your gut was right. Get out while you can. If this story moved you, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps get these important stories out there. Don't forget to subscribe for more true crime breakdowns, legal insights, and real-world justice served. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Dawson ever get parole?